What's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Dale Brown, the Wild Doc, here with Tammy, and Tammy has she's a mother of a child that was vaccine injured, and we're going to be discussing her son's story and her story of just, a level of just determination that brought about improvements in her son, and just a level of health and restoration to his functional capacity, his well-being, his quality of life, his skills, his verbal skills. So already spoke with her quite a bit, and I'm just already just amazed at the determination of this mother. So I do want to clarify that this is not my testimony. This is not a patient of mine. So I know that we have testimonies on here. This is I'm representative of Peeps TV right now, and we're going to be talking about vaccine injury and really just letting this mother take the mic and just tell us about her son's story. So introduce yourself. What's your son's name? How old is he? That kind of thing.
My name is Tammy. My son's name is Evan. He was born December 21st, 1997, so he just turned 21.
Just turned 21?
Yep.
Gotcha. And so you had several children before that, though, right?
He's my third.
Third child.
Yep.
Oh, third child. Any of the children suffer any type of major vaccine injury, or any of the others autistic?
No.
No.
My other kids are good.
Okay. So we always like to clarify some things. Now, when you had your children, were all the other children vaccinated? Are all your children vaccinated?
Yes, I did vaccinate my other ones.
Okay.
I was not an anti-vaxxer. I was completely ignorant on the topic of vaccines. I had no idea. I did what the doctor told me to do.
Did you really have even an opinion about
No,
vaccines?
I didn't have even an opinion,
just
honestly. I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
just vaccinate my kid. You said that's what my kid needs, and I didn't question at all. I gave it zero thought.
Yeah.
I'm completely honest, zero thought.
Where are you now?
Where am I now? I would never vaccinate someone
Yeah.
I love. Never. I would tell anybody I meet, please at least research.
Yeah.
It's really important that you know
And I
the
know
truth
that
about vaccines.
you've done a lot of research, because we're going to get into the subject of how you help recover a lot of qualities and opportunities and functions that your son now has. But research, is it real easy for parents to go online and find all the documents necessary to really make an informed decision on vaccines?
No, it's not easy. They make it really difficult.
Yeah.
And I think as time goes on, they're making it more difficult.
Yeah.
They're hiding things and they're censoring for
I
sure.
agree.
Back when I started figuring things out, you figure 2002-ish, 2003, say, there was a little bit online, not tons. You gotta dig
Yeah.
to find out what's going on.
So you had your son in 1997. Did he receive the vitamin K shot or the hepatitis B
Yes,
shot?
both.
Okay.
Before we left the hospital.
Okay. Now, after that point, did you notice day one or within the following weeks, when did you start noticing? Were you like, this is a normal healthy child, or were you like right away, like something's wrong with my child?
No, I really didn't. He's just a newborn, so
Yeah.
how do you know?
Yeah.
I think that's part of the terrible part about vaccinating a newborn is because
Yeah.
you don't know.
You don't know what's day one.
And I was very on schedule. So, 2
Yeah.
months, I'm there. 4
Yeah.
months, I'm there. And I was very firm in making sure that, we were at
Followed
the
the-
doctors following through on what they said to do.
Yeah.
I did not. That first 12 months, there was never a time where I would have said, this is from vaccines. He had a lot of health issues. He got a lot of colds and stuff and a lot of fussy times. I can remember the crying.
Yeah.
And same thing, I didn't know, but when looking back, I can remember a couple days of just him screaming his head off when he was a couple months old and not knowing why.
Yeah. So there's a change. Do you feel
So
that
there,
that
for
change
sure,
came
there was
after, or-
subtle changes as time went on, definitely with his health. His health definitely got more fragile as the first year went on.
Yeah. Did you see any regression
No,
at any point?
developmentally, he was on track. He laughed, he
So he was on track.
interacted. Oh, very on track.
When
very.
did you realize that something serious had happened?
Probably he was about, I would say between 17 and 18 months. And we were actually in a Mexican restaurant, and really high ceilings and tile floors, and a waiter dropped an entire tray of ceramic dishes. And it echoed in everybody in that place jumped a mile except for my son. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him, and he didn't move.
Yeah.
Didn't even flinch. And I knew that was not right. But my first thought was he had a hearing problem.
Yeah.
You know, that he just
Yeah.
didn't hear it. And that was where the lack of reaction came from.
Gotcha. And when we were talking, you said something about when you watched like the chickenpox vaccine and things like that, you started to notice some of the significant
Well,
changes.
when he had the chickenpox vaccine on its own at 12 months old.
Okay.
And so you figure right at 12 months he had that. And then by 13 and a half months old, he was in the hospital having his tonsils and adenoids out.
Gotcha.
He was so inflamed, he developed severe sleep apnea, which I actually had to take him to a sleep center, get him all hooked up.
Which is a neurological issue.
Yeah,
It
all
is.
hooked
Mhm.
up, and and he had, it was severe.
Yeah.
It wasn't like 2 seconds, it was like over 30 seconds where he quit breathing multiple times through the night. And then it was steroids and antibiotics after that. They took his tonsils out and adenoids at 13 and a half months.
So within a month and a half after the chickenpox vaccine, you saw some what I like to make
Oh
sure
my
people
gosh.
understand, that's a level
Yeah.
of immune dysregulation. That's a hyperinflammatory immune response, and those tonsils are swollen and everything else. Did you see you said around 15 or then 17, 18 months, did you see regression, loss of
Well, he
any
would have had
skills,
all the
anything
rest
like
of his
that?
vaccines at 15 months.
Did he?
So-
You still,
And still, he was neurologically
Gotcha.
fine. He laughed, he responded, he pointed, he said words. Not a lot, obviously, but he had a few words. And then, by 17 and a half months, there was something obviously wrong.
Something was
I
wrong.
call it the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
He got really quiet, quit playing, quit talking, quit interacting, no laughing, not even really any crying. He would just
a lot of
sit
those things
and
are-
zone out, just like not even there.
would he do those things before?
Before he pointed, he
Like you said, he had
chatted, he interacted with his
pictures,
siblings,
eye
he
contact
laughed. Oh yeah,
before,
all of it. He mimicked before,
Really?
and then after all of that was gone. Everything was gone.
There was a level of regressive autism here.
Oh, for
So,
sure,
which
for
is,
sure,
without
yeah.
shadow of doubt, vaccine
Which I
injury.
did. For months, I thought it was that he was deaf, and that
Yeah.
was the big problem, was that he just couldn't hear. I drug him around getting hearing tests at 4 different places, and everybody telling me he was fine. And
Did you
then
know
I had to accept.
back then? Did you know what autism was? Were you real familiar with the autism?
Not until
at
they
all?
threw it at me.
Not
I
until-
really had never met a person with autism. I had never seen it. I had other kids in school, and yet I didn't see it. I didn't know anybody. Growing up, I had never met anybody. My only experience would have been Rain Man, honestly,
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah.
That would have been it. So I had never met anybody. When they threw it was a speech therapist that first said, this kid has autism. And I was instantly, literally, I wanted to hit her. I grabbed my son and I left. I
upset
thought, how
with
the hell
how you
dare
call.
you? Yeah, how dare you say that to me? But I went home and I started researching.
Yeah.
And-
What'd you find when you started researching autism?
Just all the symptoms and stuff. And then I realized that he had a lot of this, which was very scary. It was a couple of years before I realized there was a connection to vaccines.
Gotcha.
So he was probably about 4, I'm thinking, between 4 and 4.5 before I finally figured it out.
Yeah.
And then I started not just researching vaccines, but I researched mercury poisoning.
Yeah.
Because out of curiosity. And then I realized that all these autism symptoms that he had were also symptoms of mercury
Yeah.
poisoning. And for me, as a mom, I grabbed onto that because I felt like I can do something about this maybe, where autism, they were telling me there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
But I felt
As a
like,
mother, you felt.
as a mom, I'm thinking, well, but mercury poisoning,
Yeah.
maybe I can do something about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So that's the way I looked at it.
And I want to just take an opportunity just to kind of clarify there, because I know there's going to be the naysayers and the people out there that are going to say, oh, there's no more mercury in vaccines. So what you just
Then
said,
there was, though.
yes.
Then there was.
So,
It was before
but
they replaced
nowadays
it
what
with
people say is,
aluminum.
well, your child got the mercury one and you're blaming it on vaccines, but now we took the mercury out and we see more autism.
Yeah.
So then now there's even people saying mercury is protective
I know.
against autism. It's just
ridiculous.
crazy stuff.
No.
And it's just sad. Autism is a form of brain damage. And so whatever the mechanism or manner in which you injure the brain, and mercury is one easy way to injure the brain. Aluminum is as well. And autoimmune stimulation is another. And that's, look at the hepatitis B vaccine, what it does, and look at what the chickenpox vaccine did to you, and now look at people getting these massive outbreaks and horrible inflammatory responses and shingles from the chickenpox vaccine, just shingle vaccine when they call it.
Right, and I will say my
older
son got the
adults.
chickenpox even though he had the vaccine, so
Yeah,
that
he still got it.
He still got the chickenpox.
So vaccines don't work then,
No,
huh?
they did not work. That one definitely did
sad.
not work, no, and the rest of them all made him sick, so.
So there was no level of protection against an infection, and then there was a definite harm.
A definite harm, for sure. I mean, he ended up in the hospital. He could not breathe. I slept in a recliner with him for like 2 weeks, sitting up before he had the surgery because he couldn't breathe laying down.
Wow. So how has, when that diagnosis came about, where did you turn to try and find help?
Well, I remember doing the typical route of the neurologist, of course, referred by the pediatrician. Same thing, they do tests and stuff. They have nothing to offer. They don't have anything to offer. Not even advice. There was nothing, especially back then. I honestly don't remember how I started going about finding natural thing. I think someone told me about homeopathy, and I started researching that a little bit, and that was the first thing that we did, was homeopathy and adding some supplements.
Gotcha.
And taking him off milk. That was a huge thing.
So
too.
getting rid of some food allergies.
He was a milk
Excellent.
addict, for sure.
I want to know more, because I think this is big, and I see this all the time, and I want you to clarify from a mother's standpoint, because I've never experienced this. You watch your child regress. You watch your child go from having functions and capabilities and communication and laughter and fun and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden that stuff disappears. What went through your mind as a mother when it started to sink in that something is going on?
The problem with my son, it wasn't just neurological. His health took such a great dive because after the 15-month shots, when the autism started creeping in, also asthma and allergies. So he was having nonstop allergy attacks and brought on by allergies of everything under the sun. And the steroids and the antibiotics, it all had an effect, all of it, on his behavior and everything. So for a few years there, while I was doing mainstream, the kid was a disaster. I mean, it was awful. I couldn't take him anywhere. He was violent. He was mean. He'd rip your face off. And this was, a 4-year-old. It was craziness. And you don't get the family support and stuff. People aren't there saying, "Oh, let me help." They're looking at you like you got a crazy kid.
Bad parenting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So that kind of epiphany there for me, you said 4 years old, so you were actually still in the medical model doing things for years after.
Yes, we did.
It wasn't like, oh, he's autistic, now I'm going to abandon that.
No, I stayed with mainstream medical for a couple of years there. I had him treated for allergies. We went for weekly allergy shots. I'm sure that was really beneficial for his health. It was a nonstop, the antibiotics and the steroids. It was, and then he was on daily asthma medication, breathing treatments. This was nonstop for a couple of years. I would say till probably around 4.5 when I started getting ideas about doing things natural and adding some supplements. That's when I started realizing and started trying to wean him off everything. And my goal was to replace the pharmaceuticals with something all natural. And so that's kind of, and I didn't have guidance. I just kind of winged it. I figured it out because
mother's intuition. Mother's determination.
And I had a couple people that were like, maybe we should add this and that, like fish oil. Fish oil was a huge thing to add for him. It was so good for him. So just little things like that. When we saw a classical homeopath, I think when he was about 4.5. And, got a little bit out of that. Saw a Chinese herbalist, and same thing. Got a little bit out of that. Switched to another homeopath, got some out of that. So I used to call him a small responder. He didn't get big response out of things we did, but he got a little bit everywhere we went.
Gotcha.
And so I just kept going.
Gotcha.
So.
Did you ever go back to the original pediatrician that vaccinated him and ask questions about the declining health of your son?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I would love to now. Now that I know what I
Now you know
I'd be
you
so
know,
happy to do a one-on-one interview there.
Did you ever bring up the subject of autism and vaccinations in a medical physician's office, and was there any responses from them?
Not until I started seeing the alternative doctors, like seeing a Dan doctor.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
know.
wonderful
They
docs.
know. So it's
Yeah.
easy to talk to them about it. You know, the homeopaths and stuff like that. Took him to a place to have him tested when he was about 7 to have all his levels tested, and then they did like individual supplements geared towards that person.
Gotcha.
And so those kind of doctors,
Yeah.
yes, you could
Yeah.
openly talk to them
Yeah.
about vaccine injury, and they all know.
Gotcha. How did this impact the life with your family, your husband, other kids? What?
It was tough. It's hard to be an autism sibling.
Yeah.
My older son struggled a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, he just struggled so much. It was not easy. We had years there where my youngest was so violent and so mean, and it was like my other son was never safe.
Yeah.
This younger one would just attack him at any moment, and it was hard on
And it wasn't
the
like
kids.
playful
my
wrestling
daughter,
attack.
no. And my daughter, she was older, and so she was a nurturer, you know, and she's the girl. So she was my helper, and she was
Yeah.
the person I could always count on to help me with my son. Grandparents, not so much, and you know.
Yeah. So there was a burden on the family,
Oh, for
and
sure.
relationships. it
For
sounds like,
sure.
with your
Everybody
parents.
struggles, and it's, you know, you can't go places, you can't do things.
Yeah.
All my attention,
Yeah.
all the time. If we did go someplace,
Yeah.
I had to be on him every second,
Yeah.
which takes away from the others.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's hard on everybody.
It's one of those things that breaks my heart with friends who have children who've been vaccine injured and now diagnosed as autistic. And, you know, we invite them over for dinner, and sometimes they can come over, and sometimes it's like, no sitter. And it's always like, it's free. We have, you know, quote unquote neurotypical children, so our children are healthy, and I'm like, they'll come over and they're just like, well, the thing is, it makes it extremely hard for us to enjoy anything because we can't leave him alone if
You
we're in his
just
presence.
don't
You know,
know.
and I don't even
Yeah.
understand that level of need for caring for a child.
See, I would never would have left my son with a babysitter unless my daughter had been there too.
Wow.
Because he would never have let someone else touch him.
Wow.
Where he would let her. He
Yeah.
would let her help him and touch him. But I would have feared. I would have
Yeah.
been afraid for another babysitter to be
Yeah.
left alone until he was much older.
Yeah.
You know, but during those, especially those few years, there's no
Yeah.
way.
And you spoke a little bit before the interview about just the financial burden, what it did there. I think what powerful and just realization of what happens is when you have a child that's vaccine injured and damaged like that, all your money, you said, like focused in on one child. So,
Well, insurance covers nothing. You can
Yeah.
have the best insurance in the world, at least back then, and
Yeah.
it covered absolutely nothing, not even the speech therapy.
Wow.
So, you've got to make priorities, and for years and years, healing him was the priority, and so
Yeah.
all the money.
Yeah.
And everything costs so much money, you know? I mean, taking him to a homeopathic center, we did that for almost 3 years straight, so you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars.
can you just list off some of the things that you did
Ooh,
to recover
what
and
did we do?
improve your
The two main things that I feel were so vital to him were the years of homeopathic.
Okay.
They go right through that whole vaccines. They start from day one of life, and they try to reverse all the damage,
Yeah.
and that was extremely beneficial to him. And then the other thing was hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Okay.
After the 3 years of homeopathic, we followed that up with hyperbaric.
Yeah.
And same thing, I was nervous because he was so much older. He was 12 the first time
Wow.
we did it, and I thought, you know, is he really going to get anything out of this? The same thing, I did research on the male brain.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? Male brain just keeps growing and growing, so this could be a really good time, puberty, to try something new with a
Gotcha.
big bang to it, you know?
Yeah.
And so we did hyperbaric, and
Okay.
he got so much out of that.
With other forms of brain damage, from TBIs to Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, to other stroke recovery, hyperbarics helps. So why not with
It was,
autism,
for him,
vaccine injury?
it was amazing.
Awesome.
I mean, he started thinking, I can remember before that, I could have told him anything
Yeah.
and he believed it. You know, he was verbal, but he had no ability, no real conversational abilities and no ability to question. And then after that, it was like,
You mentioned
Crazy.
hyperbarics. That's one of those things, like, I've been, like, on the verge of, like, do I invest in that? So,
Oh,
because I would be,
yeah.
like, the only one in the area. It's, like, something I thought about
be able to make it
investment
affordable.
financially, and then that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like it's so much of that stuff. You have to spend so much money on the equipment, and then it's like, how do you? Because it's just a level of, for me, working with children and families is a level of, because it is so much of their lifestyle. Many a times it's a single parent home working, or it's a single parent. So you wind up having very tight finances there, and how do you recover the
It's hard.
investment and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
And to make it affordable so that people can actually use it, because hyperbaric isn't something you do once.
yeah, I'm literally asking you, like,
Yeah.
because I'm like
But,
on that
wow,
verge of making
it was
that.
so beneficial
Was it?
to my son. I mean, we went, well, the first year we went for a month. We did 40 dives. And then we came home, and the differences in him were so big that I gathered all the money I could, and we went back for another
Yeah.
month. And then the next summer, we went back for another 50 dives. So my son has had like 130 dives, I think,
Gotcha.
total.
Wow.
In like a year's time.
Wow.
And I mean, I just can't say enough about how much it helped him.
Wow.
Every child with autism should be able to have this therapy, and it
Wow.
should be covered.
So what were some of the improvements you saw? So going through these therapies, really the therapy isn't the joy comes from seeing what was happening in your son.
Questions. That was what I got.
Questions.
Questions. Mom, why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? You know what? The week before that, he couldn't have cared less what color the sky was, and
Do
he
you
never
remember
would
the
have
first
asked.
question you ever asked?
The first question was the grass in the sky.
Yeah.
That was his first questions. We were out on a weekend. We did this, we lived in Michigan at the time.
Okay.
And we did hyperbaric in Wisconsin. So
Okay.
we were there for an entire month.
What age did you start hyperbarics? Do you remember?
He was 12.
He was 12.
12.
So he added, those first questions were 12.
Yeah. 12.
And it's almost like I apologize, because it's like me and my wife with our 4.5-year-old Amos in the back seat. Well, why? Well, why? And my wife's like, I don't understand
My 3-year-old
how to
granddaughter's the same
explain
way.
why
Yeah.
the sky is blue, why
Yeah.
the grass is green. And then I'm going into the scientific, well, it's, it's the gleaming of the light and the
Yeah.
reflection. And I'm like, it's the chlorophyll in the grass.
Yeah.
And, well, why is chlorophyll in the grass? And it's like, good gracious.
Yeah. Well, my son was 12 and asking for the first time asking. And one of the other things everything. I feel like his mind just opened up from the hyperbaric. But
Wow.
one of the other things he got from it was music. And
Yeah.
people just don't understand that this kid hated music before. It was like his brain couldn't deal with music. It was like too much for him to process.
Yeah.
And so he hated music. He didn't want to listen to it at any level. And then when we went to hyperbaric, all of a sudden he's like turning up the radio.
Wow.
And I hear him over there getting a little
Nice.
beat going and trying to hum along. And that was huge for me. I mean, to see my son, it was a gift to me.
Yeah.
The gift of music.
Yeah.
To me, it showed that his brain was finally functioning and processing in a way that it couldn't before.
I think you've almost kind of solidified I need to invest there as soon as I can, because, the reality is, like, I'm just having that conversation, and just as a father, I'm like, I watch my 2.5-year-old little girl, like, bobbing and weaving, to music and stuff like that, and she loves it, and she's doing this, and I'm like, how much joy does that bring me? And you didn't get to see that type of thing
No,
until
he
you was a
hated
teenager.
music. Like, I couldn't even listen to music in the car because he didn't like it. It was like he couldn't process it, and it
Yeah.
confused his brain. So he just didn't want to deal with music, period.
So the use and the vaccinations, because that's really where it stems back to. What have they, just, open-ended question, what have they taken from you? And I think you've kind of explained it here as we're having this conversation.
They
But
took the child I gave birth to.
Yeah.
I don't know who that kid is. I knew him
Yeah.
for like 15 months,
yeah,
and then he was gone.
yeah,
And now we have a different kid. He's probably kind of close, maybe,
Yeah.
to who he should have been, but he'll never be who he should have been. I mean,
Yeah.
life is always going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
He's always going to need support. He's very high functioning.
yeah,
He can laugh and joke, and,
yeah,
he's awesome.
yeah,
But he will always need someone there. always.
A level of what we call normalcy.
Right. The odds of him living all alone and taking care of his own life, that's probably not going to happen. He's always going to need someone to look out for him.
So since autism's always been around, right?
Right.
And it's just better diagnosis, do you already have plans, and is insurance going to pay, if you so choose to put him into a home or a facility? Because those, and I'm joking here, but you get me? This is one of the most frustrating things for me I can imagine.
No,
for
the
a
herd
parent.
disappears when our kids are empty, are injured. The herd just
abandons you.
they're gone, and our kids are injured, and we did what you asked us to do, and yet there is no support.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen to all these kids.
Yeah.
I worry. I think my son is lucky that he has two older siblings that are willing to take that on and be there for him.
Yeah.
And that's a blessing, but not everybody has that. And,
Yeah.
and you know what? In all honesty, why should they have to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't give birth to my other children to have to take care of this other one. That's not the way life is supposed to work.
But your children are there and willing to when
I'm
day
fortunate that
comes
he has
necessary.
an older brother and an older sister
Yeah.
that have both said that they would, help him
Yeah.
and be there for him. Not everybody has that.
That's where, this portion of the conversation can really speak to the reality that, I see so many people out there that will say autism's always been around, it's better diagnosis, which is completely junk, it's blatant lies, and I would just say shut your mouth. Because when the hospitals are saying we don't know what to do with all these children coming in or young adults coming in now,
Right.
Teenagers coming in, young adults, 20-some years old, low 20s, and they're extremely violent at times, not necessarily as recovered as your son. So, and then saying they don't know they don't have anywhere to send them, they don't have any procedures for that type of circumstance except
they'll just
for
drug 'em.
physical, and then chemical sedation, physically
and that's it.
holding
And
them
then
down and
what
chemical
happens
sedation.
to all these kids?
Yeah.
When there are no parents or siblings to take care of them, what happens to all these, someday 50 and 60 and 70-year-olds with autism? What are you going to do with them all?
Yeah.
It's frightening to me. It's absolutely frightening. And
Yeah.
I know what I think will happen to them, and that's even more frightening.
What were some of the big things that you found when you started your research that really kind of spoke to you and said, my son's vaccine injured. He's not autistic. He was vaccine injured, and they're labeling it autism.
Oh, everything. When I went through the inserts and I read all the possible side effects and realized that everything my son had ever had, all his illnesses
Were listed.
were listed, from the asthma to the allergies to the sleep apnea to the autism and everything. He had facial tics, he had all these little things, and every single thing was listed on that insert. I knew that that's what it was. It was the vaccines. He couldn't tolerate them, and his system couldn't flush out all the poison.
Yep. How's your son doing now?
Now he's awesome. He's a great kid. He's 21. He's not in high school anymore, which is a great thing, because high school is hell. So that's a great thing, but it creates other issues, because it's what are we going to do with this kid to help him fulfill his life?
Gotcha. So did he start normal kindergarten? Did he go through school,
withheld
or
him a
was he-
year for kindergarten because he did not even talk at the time, and I could not put him in when he was literally nonverbal. It scared the hell out of me, to be honest. But he was in special education in an isolated classroom. He was in a regular classroom for the first 2 years because he was so young that they don't know what to do with him at that point.
Yeah.
Third grade started an isolated classroom. By fifth grade, he was getting better enough after all the homeopathy that he hated being in the isolated classroom. So I made them bump him to the regular classrooms. Middle school, high school, mainstream with a ton of support.
Yeah.
He needed, somebody to go to help him do the work that he didn't understand. It's definitely not as disability friendly in high school as they are in middle school and elementary, because they want, in order to get a diploma, they want them to do everything everybody else is doing, whether they can or not.
Yeah.
School was hell. It was really difficult. I mean, the kids are just mean as hell.
Yeah.
And picked on him, and he had no friends, and it was tough.
Yeah.
I think he's become a better person now that he's out of school. I think his anxieties and all those things that he had brewing in him all the time are much lower, and he's happier because of it.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. But again, we still come down to what are we going to do with this kid?
Yeah.
You know, to
Is
fulfill
he
his
employed
life.
right now? Or
Nope.
does he do, so he's
He's not
still a
employed.
dependent child at 21
He's
years
a very
of age?
dependent child.
Yeah.
He's he's not 21 in his head.
Yeah.
You know, he's younger. So you can't expect what
Yeah.
you can't.
Yeah.
So a developmental disability carries on even after you're 18. It
Yeah.
doesn't stop. So, but that is on the agenda, that we're going to try to find him
Awesome.
somebody that will hopefully is willing to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And because you can't just throw him into some job situation
Yeah.
and expect and say, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
He's going to need step by step. It's going to have to be repeated over and
Mhm.
over again. So we're
Somebody with a loving, caring heart.
Right.
Time on their
right,
hand.
and then now
not-
everything is
not
apply
money hungry,
online.
that-
So
yeah.
how do you apply online? Because by applying online, it looks like I have a 21-year-old who's never had a job.
Yeah.
And they're not exactly going to call him from GameStop or something
Yeah.
as a 21-year-old who's never been employed before.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to find a place
Yeah.
for them, you know?
So what became easier for you as you saw recovery occurring?
What became easier was not having all the health crisis.
Really?
We were able to heal his asthma and his allergies, which was a huge,
Yeah.
huge thing. His gut got better after homeopathy and hyperbaric too, and that was a
Nice.
big thing too. But when his body healed, his brain healed, and him being conversational is what,
Yeah.
it's hard having a kid who can't tell you what their pain is or
Yeah.
what their emotional needs are. And now he'll tell you.
What was I'm curious, and if you are okay and you think your son would be okay in case he watches this in the future, like, because I thought we were going to see him today,
Yeah,
and
he didn't
then he
wanna come.
decided not to. Just how does he express his feeling towards the medical community, the resistance of the medical community to accept the fact that vaccines do cause autism, and the fact that because you were saying to me, he knows that
Yeah,
he was
knows he's
vaccine
different.
injured.
Yeah, he knows he's different, and it's hard on him. It was after homeopathy that he figured
Yeah.
out he was different. He was about, I think he was like 10, 11 maybe. And one day he looked at me and he just said, now I get it. I'm in autism. And it was one of those moments where, as a mom, I knew that meant that we had healed to another level.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it broke my heart.
Realization.
It broke my heart for him. And after that, he always knew he was different. Yes, he knows he's vaccine injured. We've had the conversation many times. He knows my stance and our entire family's stance
Yeah.
on vaccines. Other than that, I don't really know how much of a, feel he's got for the movement or
Yeah.
how important it is or
Yeah.
anything like that. He knows they hurt him. He knows that his childhood was.
Knows his mom's fighting for him, right?
Yeah, I kind of think he knows that.
Yeah.
I don't think he remembers a lot of the stuff,
Yeah.
I've asked him before how much he remembers because, these kids have strange memories, the things that they will remember and the things that they don't. But there's been a few times where he surprised me with
Yeah.
memories from being nonverbal. Teachers being mean to him at school, things like that. And he'll throw a memory at me that I'm just
Yeah.
horrified that happened to him when he couldn't tell me about it when he came home from school that day.
Wow.
So,
So, I think we covered most of the stuff. Do you remember any questions that I may have forgotten?
so.
I'd like to just kind of, always kind of like, we told him a bunch of stuff, but give the short synopsis from you watched a child, healthy, born to you, vaccinated, Hep B, vitamin K shot was given. You watched after the chickenpox vaccine, severe health crisis hit.
Yep.
Tonsils removed, adenoids removed, asthma and allergies set in, so inflammatory neuroimmune issues started in around the 17, 18 month. You really started to realize that something was going on here.
Right.
He was regressing.
Yeah.
Laughter, fun, all these things, his
For
visual,
years. Yeah,
all this
for
stuff.
years. It was all
And then he was
on.
4 years old and still just
My son was not even potty
medically,
trained at
lots of
4.5.
drugs, lots of medications, still at 4
Yeah.
years old, still not packed.
Nope, he was not.
and then you started naturopathy or homeopathy, and you saw improvements there. That took a long time. I think that's a big thing that I think a lot of parents, just entering into this
Right.
realm of understanding, that their child's been vaccine injured is they're still stuck in what I call the medical model's way of thinking, that it's going to be, here's a
gonna be a
drug
pill.
in one dose,
Right.
and you take a dose and it gets you here at this symptomatology improvement.
That's not the way it works. No, it took his entire childhood to heal him, and I said we did not recover him 100%, but it took his entire childhood. Once I figured it out,
Yeah.
that's all we did for years and years and years was
Yeah.
from one thing to the other. He's always on supplements. He'll always need supplements.
Yeah.
Even to this day, he cannot go without his
Yeah.
supplements.
You see regression.
Not
issues if he
even
has to skip.
with his gut, especially.
Gut.
If he doesn't have probiotics and
Yeah.
fiber and things like that, his gut, no matter what he's eating, his gut can't take it.
Gotcha.
So that's one of the big things with him. He's pretty healthy now. No signs of asthma or allergies. Once in a while, he'll get a little seasonal sniffle, but
Yeah.
for the most part, he's
So
really
immune
healthy.
system is strong again.
Yep. We were able to do that. Like I said, the kid, he's smart. He's super conversational and,
Awesome.
all those things. But at the same time, he
Yeah.
still has the label, and he always will.
So speak to the parents out there because I just feel there may be some out there saying, well, if you can't recover them 100%, then what's it worth?
It's worth everything.
Okay.
It's worth everything. You got to try to heal your kid. You're talking quality of life. When my son was 5 years old, the only way you could make him laugh was to tickle him. That was it.
So physical
It was
stimuli, that's it.
and that was it. Nothing else. And now he's got this wicked sense of humor, and he enjoys life. He wants to go places and see things and have experiences that when he was a child he could not handle.
Yeah.
He never could handle that stuff. So any amount of healing that you get is worth it for the benefit of your child. And please, above everything, never vaccinate again.
Awesome.
My son never had any more vaccines, and I'll always say that was part of the reason he was able to heal.
Heal to the degree
He didn't
he
have to keep fighting
Yep.
pharmaceuticals, especially after we put the pharmaceuticals too. Then he no longer was fighting those battles
Yeah.
in his body, and he was able to heal.
So was it somebody that came to you, an anti-vaxxer, that came to you and been like, your son's vaccine injured? Or how
Yeah,
did you learn?
actually, it was a little tiny, we lived in Grand Blanc, Michigan, and there was an article in the local paper, the Flint Journal, little tiny one-paragraph thing about a possible link between vaccines and autism. And I read that, and I went, huh.
Yeah.
And instantly, it was a light bulb moment for me. And I actually contacted the paper because I was curious about this reporter and everything. And so the reporter then wanted to do a story on my son. And I let him do a story because we were going to send his hair in for some sampling to test for the mercury.
Yeah.
And after that story came out in the paper, I had so many people contact me whose kids had had problems with vaccines too. And a couple of people that were knowledgeable about vaccine injury and supplements and things like that that contacted me and kind of pushed me into the way of getting out of mainstream medicine into the alternative and actually doing some healing.
So, I mean, I think sometimes we get this in the, what should be the right path, the path to healing. And in this realm, you get people where they're like, oh, well, we're just convincing, anti-vaxxers are just convincing parents that are less fortunate to have a child that is just born that way, that they're convincing them that they're vaccine injured. Do you feel that the evidence and the knowledge you gained through reading, or was it somebody just
sure.
continuously just convincing you?
No, I have all my sons. I went
went
I
through
have
the
a stack
inserts.
of medical records this big. I've read the inserts. I went so far as to get his shot records with his medical records, and I lined everything out that I could see that all his events, all his health events, were within about a 2-week mark of vaccinations.
Yeah.
Everything was connected.
Yeah.
And not only that, but if that was the case, then all the natural therapies that we did to heal him would not have worked.
Yeah.
If he was just born that way, nothing would have
could
worked.
recovered, yeah.
Whereas that's not the way it worked out at all.
Yeah.
We were able to make big difference in his
Yeah.
life and do some good healing. And I know he wasn't born that way. Like, I have it
Yeah.
on video. I have all the pictures of the eye contact, the videos of him interacting and laughing with his siblings and playing peekaboo. And You know, why would he be able to do that at 6 months old, but he
Yeah.
couldn't do that at 15 or at 16 months old? You know, so
Evidence right there, right in
I
front of
know.
you.
I know
Don't
what happened to
deny
my kid. The mothers
intuition.
know. The parents know. You
There was
gotta
a
listen to the parents.
It's funny, there was a study here, I haven't got to read the whole thing, but it talked about intelligence, and higher intelligence is intuition over like logic and different things like that. And it just speaks to the fact that your intuition kicks in as parents, and what medicine wants, or medical world wants to say to mom is, okay, many mothers, many parents have told me, I didn't feel right about vaccinating my child before I did, but I did it because I was told to. I did it because that's the way the world works, and that's what you
Right.
do with your
You just do
child.
it.
You listen to your pediatrician, you do what they say. But their intuition was saying no, so their higher level intelligence than anything else was saying no. And then when they started seeing things happen and harm coming to their child, their intuition was saying, it's vaccines, it's this, but then medicine always says, your intuition is junk.
Right. Right. But the moms know.
Yes.
The moms
So listen
know.
to the
And
moms.
you gotta listen to the parents on this. That's just the way I feel so
Yeah.
strongly about it. All these mothers, all these dads, they're not wrong. We know what happened to our kids. We saw it with our own eyes. We have video evidence and pictures and we know. And why would we make that up? And to say we need someone to blame is completely ridiculous. I don't need anyone to blame. I had me.
Yeah.
I blamed me. I still blame me. You know what I mean? I followed blindly. I was a
Yeah.
sheep. I did as I was told, and I didn't question anything. And I don't need anyone to blame. I've got me. I know where the blame should start.
It's always so hard for me to hear moms say, because I hear that often. But I always want to say to the moms and you as well, that it's not your fault somebody lied to you.
Yeah.
The fact that people are lying, people continue to lie, it's not your fault.
But, you know, still,
Yeah.
it just comes down to you're the mom.
There could
And
have
it's
been,
our job to
yeah.
keep them safe. And, you know, I know 20 years ago there was so much less information and the movement definitely wasn't there then
No.
and all that. But it's still my kid. And
Yeah.
I feel like it was my responsibility to question and to
Yeah.
at least ask. I'm sure they would have lied to me, but
Yeah.
it's
that's-
still, how do you not take the blame?
Yeah.
That's your kid and it's your responsibility.
Well, hopefully this message and this story and just, talking, what's your son's name again?
Evan.
Evan. Hopefully Evan's story and Tammy coming here will get the word out. So I always say it, please share the truth. Don't just like it. It's the only way we're going to save lives and change lives. And, it's amazing what you've been able to bring back into your son's life in terms of quality of life and function and capabilities and, relationships, it sounds like, that has been regained
Right.
by never quitting, abandoning the drug world, because the first many years of his life were just drug after drug after
Right.
drug, and it sounded like he got a lot worse. And that's the truth, is those drugs it worsens the entire scenario and system of autism. We've got to get these children
all the
healing.
antibiotics and steroids, everything's just bouncing off each other and creating havoc. And my son hasn't needed any of those.
Yeah.
He hasn't been on steroids since he was probably.
Does he take any medication?
No, he doesn't take
That's
any
phenomenal.
supplements or it. He has not.
Awesome.
He doesn't need to go to the doctor. He's not sick. He's healthy
Awesome.
now. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's
Good work, Mom.
better for
Good
him. Thank
work.
you.
Really good work.
Thank
So,
you.
Anthony, we got any questions online before we sign off? Get a phone or anything we want to see if anybody's tuned in and if they got any questions or anything like that. Anything else you feel like you would like to say to people out there?
Just educate before you vaccinate. You gotta know what you're doing to your babies, and look for red flags because
Yeah.
the doctors won't. My son had tons of red flags, and if the doctors had paid attention to him, then that last final vaccine injury would not have happened if the doctors would have been looking at those red flags.
Because you vaccinated even after tonsils removed, everything after the injury.
on schedule,
at
after
12.
he had just had surgery and antibiotics and all those steroids. He'd probably been off antibiotics only maybe a week or two when they vaccinated
Wow.
again.
So he was he's still recovering from an illness.
Yes,
at
for
one
sure.
point. So,
From surgery.
gotcha.
There is no small surgery when you're 13 months old. That's major surgery.
So let's see if I get any question marks in here, kind of roll through things. Did you say anything specifically? Amber, and there are lots of comments. Mix of mercury and aluminum, somebody saying. Amber is saying I must have PTSD because everything she says is giving me flashbacks to our journey from ASD diagnosis to almost completely healed. God bless this mom and for not accepting the standard of care.
And that is something too, the moms,
What
the
are the red
PTSD,
flags
that's
to look
true.
for?
That's, what you go through is hell.
What are the red flags to look for?
With a red.
Red flags, for my son, red flags were constant infections, constant cold-like infections, breathing issues were huge. I mean, having his tonsils and adenoids out, I don't know what bigger red flag, sleep apnea, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
And they were all ignored by his pediatrician.
Sleep apnea is oftentimes even a neurological injury, and then if we want to blame, the constricted airway on the tonsils and adenoids, those are immune system organs and glands. So those things, just explain for people out there, that was a red flag that his immune system had gone into hyperdrive, overdrive, inflammatory immune response, and the chronic illnesses, chronically sick and always sick, always on these antibiotics, always this, the cellular immune system is very, very weak. And you look at injection vaccines, and the science is very, very clear, and there are some scientists out there, but I say there's always a way to just let your child grow up naturally, and as long as you're taking care of them, even if they come in contact and get polio, even if they get these things, 99.9% of polio is a cold-like symptom, and that's it, no paralysis. And the reality is there's beneficial effects from natural mucosal membrane stimulation of the immune system and introduction of pathogens rather than an injection. And these injections stimulate that improper immune response, that inflammatory immune response. So everything she's describing is what the vaccines train the human body to do, is to lower and weaken the cellular immune response, a very specific, a differentiating immune response to where you know self from non-self, identifying your brain cells from a virus, from a pathogen, from a protein that's been, and then injecting these things in just hyper stimulate that immune response to create that inflammation and that damage.
And
so
that's what it does. Yep.
And she's literally explaining science better than most medical physicians here. So
Did she do any genetic testing?
genetic testing.
Yes, he was genetically tested.
What did you
Back
find?
when he was probably about 3, they found nothing.
Found nothing.
Nothing.
Because you said you even saw like a neurologist at one point in time. Was there any help from that?
Absolutely none. None.
Yeah, we talked beforehand, and I was just like, working with many families and parents, and trying to assist the parents, and I've got a couple, one or two, medical physicians that I kind of say, okay, go to. I wish I could still convince them to not vaccinate anybody, but that day will come, I believe, with that realization. But again, it's because that's their money. But the reality is, we got to find a place sometimes, but the best thing you can get from them oftentimes is simply that referral for diapers, so you don't have to pay for the diapers.
Exactly. But other than that, referral for some other kind of therapy or whatever that you need that maybe insurance will pay for if you have the referral. Other than that, they were completely useless. Completely useless. They did not do one single thing to help my son.
There's a lot of people in here just praising you and just thanking you and just saying that, that it's going to be ex-vaxxers, because that's what you are.
I'm an ex-vaxxer, that's right.
You were there.
Yeah.
I say my mom was a vaxxer, intuition said don't do it. I was vaccinated, but I was in special reading classes. I was the slow one in school. I actually took the alternative schools to go towards possibly being a mechanic at one point in time. I truly believe it. I remember getting a tetanus vaccine after needing stitches. And literally something changed in me. I can remember that to this day, and remember telling my mom and laying on the couch saying, "Mom, call some of my friends because I want to say goodbye because I think I'm dying."
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And I had stitches many times, but they would always. I would get that Tdap, the tetanus vaccine, over and over and over again. It didn't matter if I got stitches last year and got it again. They was just, we'll just do it again.
Right, because they think there's no harm done with repeating it over and over.
So, but these, genetic testing, homeopathy, woo-woo. Positive, was your son positive for MTHFR? But probably at that time
at that time there wasn't. I
would.
would like to get him tested because I'm curious. My daughter got her baby tested and he's a carrier. So I have no doubt my son had that blue sugar vein across his forehead when he was a baby. I have no doubt that we have it in there.
And now I'm thinking about some of those red flags. Like your son got the Hep B vaccine, which is known to cause liver cell death. Like the research actually shows liver cell death. It kills liver cells. It can destroy the liver at times in a severe response to that vaccine. With the Hep B vaccine given at day one, what happened after the Hep B vaccine?
He got jaundice immediately.
Liver
My
damage.
son, I took my son home when he was 15 hours old That's when we went home. So at 12 hours old, I was saying I want to go home because it was Christmas.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got kids at home. I need to go home, you know.
Yeah.
So my third kid. I'm good. Let's go. And they said you can go home, but he's got to be vaccinated first. I didn't question it. I just let him do it. So at 12 hours, he was fine. They vaccinated him. I took him home at 15 hours, and he was jaundice. And I kept having to take him back for the light thing and get him tested. So.
And one of the things, like your son, he was a little bit older, but he developed sleep apnea after vaccinations. And I hear oftentimes in parents, when I go through just initial questions and just learning about their sleep issues, huge sleep and breathing issues, and I often hear that baby was fine, they took him to the nursery, there was nothing wrong with their son, perfectly fine, got the Hep B vaccine, and all of a sudden, low oxygen level, sleep, or not sleep, but the breathing reflexes, and then had to have respiratory support after Hep B. And I'm like, there's an infant with sleep apnea that just not diagnosing
my son
it.
went home so fast they wouldn't even have known that because, like I said, I took him home at 15 hours old. So they vaccinated him, and boom, I was out the door. So if he would have had some kind of problem from it, they would have never known.
Gotcha.
You know, which that's scary too.
Yeah.
Not that they would have recognized it for what it was.
How much did your son weigh when he was born?
He was 8'14", I believe.
8'14", so
he was a
big
boy.
kid, big boy.
Yep.
Seeing, when you look at the research, it's always like the low weight, birth weight infants and things like that have a statistically significant
he was a
increased
big boy.
risk
He
of
was always
vaccine
a big
injury,
baby.
and then different diagnoses. So, gotcha. Just tell the mother something that's on your heart. I know it's on the spot question.
That's so on the spot. Spread the word.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I can tell you is every mom tell them. That's all we can do is plant seeds. I don't know if they're going to listen. I've had people in my own family blow me off like I'm not even hadn't fully vaccinated their own children. So they may not listen, but we can plant seeds. And I feel like that's all we can do is just plant those seeds and try to save as many babies as we can.
We have to
And
have
then
that
for all you
grassroots.
autism mamas, please do not give up. You can heal your kids. And no, you may not be able to heal them 100%. You may never get them back to the child that you gave birth. But you can improve their future. And when you improve their future, you improve mama's future. So do what you can do. You all need it. Heal.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. All right, everybody, share the truth. Let's go save some lives.